everybody, and welcome to the second of my two-part mini-series on the Cosmic Encounter Shenanigans deck that my friends and I made. If you haven't seen the first part, please go and check that out first by clicking it right there. Right? That'll go over what the Shenanigans deck means, what it does, all of that kind of stuff, as well as going over the first portion of it, which includes the base set of Cosmic Encounter, as well as the first three expansions, Cosmic Incursion, Conflict, and Alliance. In this video, I'm going to be going over the last part of the Shenanigans deck, which consists of just the last two expansions, Cosmic Storm and Cosmic Dominion. So with that, just like last time, I'm going to go over very briefly what each of the different expansions does before I start talking about the alien powers, and then I'm going to jump right in. Starting off this second video is Cosmic Storm. This actually happens to be the most recent expansion that I have acquired, although it is the second to last one that was released. This particular one added a couple of minor mechanics that we haven't really used too much. The major thing it adds is actually the space station mechanic, which adds an additional sort of layer of wackiness in general to the different planets that you have. But as I mentioned in the last video, this one does not have a player edition. The last player edition was only in the third expansion, and this one's the fourth. But we do have quite a few alien powers, and you can see we got a decent number here in our Shenanigans deck. And this is actually mostly because there's a whole lot of card transfer going on, which is fairly ridiculous, but again, a lot of fun. So getting started straight off is the Phantasm. This particular one, the little tagline is you have the power of instability. And essentially what you do is something similar to what the Oracle does with Divine Intervention, where you flip up a card from the Cosmic deck and then, oops, sorry about that. And if it's not an encounter card, you discard it. If it is, then you can replace either of the player's cards with that particular one. Now the Oracle, you can only replace yours. So we thought this one was a lot more fun because it's a little bit more of the wacky weirdness that goes along with the theme of our deck. Next up is the Outlaw, also known as the Mustache with a bunch of guns. The reason that this is a mustache with a bunch of guns is because after you win an encounter, actually after the alliances rather, and only as a main player, then you actually take one card at random from every single player who's on the opposing side, ally and main player included. So again, this is why having more people is so much better. The Outlaw can be ridiculously powerful and very, very difficult to defeat, but again, a lot of fun, and all of the cards are added to their hand. Very crazy. Next is your neighbor. Everybody loves having a neighbor, right? In this case, what the neighbor does is whenever you're attacking somebody, then or actually as an ally as well, then it says, after the main player on your side reveals the attack card, you use this power to add 1 to the total for each ship you have in the targeted system. So let's say you're attacking blue, for example, and you've got 3 colonies, each of them with 2 ships already that are in blue, then you add an additional 6 to your total. Pretty crazy, and again, this really helps out the people who are attacking the same people more and more, which doesn't necessarily happen a lot, but if neighbor gets lucky and is drawing the wild destiny cards or whatever, then you can have some issues. Next up is the Scavenger. Scavenger is pretty fun because anytime you lose a colony, regardless of where it is, be it your home or a foreign colony, you get to look through the discard pile and take any card you want. Doesn't matter, you just get to take it. It's really cool, and in addition, this says right here, whenever you would place 1 or more cards in the discard pile, instead they go face up on this deck, or on this card. So in other words, this controls you from essentially discarding a card, getting it back, discard, get it back, and all that kind of stuff. It just goes here, but then when the deck gets reshuffled, all of the cards on this card get put back and everything gets reshuffled together. But either way, it's a lot of fun. It's a pretty crazy little power. Next up is what we all consider, or what my gaming group considers to be a sort of upgraded version of the Dictator. The Dictator is a power that essentially dictates what the destiny is, and the replacement in our eyes is the Coordinator. So what the Coordinator does is basically, instead of just straight up drawing a card, you are allowed to look at the top 3 and then you reorder them however you want. And you can actually, you have to pick one of them as your destiny, but then you can also put the others on top or on bottom of the deck. Doesn't matter what. It's pretty crazy. It's a lot of fun. It is unfortunately only with the only as the offense, but again, it's so much better than the Dictator, and you can actually see it says do not use with Dictator. It's so much better and so much more fun, and again, just general shenanigan-y than the Dictator is. We really prefer this a great deal to it. Next up is one of my personal favorites from this expansion, which is the Wormhole. The Wormhole is actually really, really cool because it's kind of a combination between the zombie and the warpish, where whenever you're sending ships to attack somebody else, you can actually just straight up take them out of the warp instead of taking them from any of your colonies. And in addition, any of your allies, if you so desire to let them, may do the same thing. It's pretty ridiculous. Now, for those of you who don't know, the warpish actually adds all of the ships in the warp to their total, and then the zombie, of course, are the ones that don't die ever. So it's a bit of a combination, because the idea with the Wormhole is that whenever you attack or are being attacked, then you can just sort of take some ships out of the warp just to sort of bolster your numbers. Pretty crazy, a lot of fun, and again, this is actually if you're the ally as well. So it's a very versatile power as well. The Converter. Converter is interesting because the idea is that you're essentially exchanging cards and ships. And what you do is that whenever you would lose any ships, then you can essentially discard cards in lieu of sending those ships. So this is a great way to also filter your hand. If you've got a bunch of negotiates or really low attack cards, whatever it happens to be, then instead of losing those 4 ships or however many it would be, then you can just discard the cards. In addition, if you would normally take a ship out of the warp, then you can actually choose to draw cards instead. So it's a really, really powerful thing to do, especially if you've got a semi-decent hand, but arguably more powerful if you've got really bad ones, because then you can just get rid of all of your terrible cards, but maintain all of your ships. Next up is the Porcupine. The Porcupine is actually somewhat similar to the last one I talked about. I don't remember the name now, the Converter. The reason that I say that is because the Porcupine can actually discard cards after encounter cards are revealed and add that number, the number of cards that you discard. So if you discard 3 cards, you add 3. And you can add it to the side's total. So it's sort of like expensive reinforcements or junk card reinforcements type of thing. Really, really strong, potentially very powerful, and again, a great way to essentially filter out your hand. And in addition, one of the other things too is you can actually subtract it from your side's total as well, so it ends up being a lot more versatile compared to some of the other ones, like say the Reserve, which has a somewhat similar power where you actually use the face value of the card. But in this case, you can subtract it if you're going against the loser or antimatter or whatever it happens to be. Next up is the Patriot. The Patriot is a very interesting power, and it can be very, very difficult to play. Essentially what you do is you show another player one of your cards and you say, look at this, this is my pledge of loyalty to you. And then they can either take the card or refuse it. If they take the card, then obviously they get the card. If they refuse it, then you get the card back, and then you take one of their ships and you put it on the character sheet. After you do that, then whenever anybody is going after that player, then you can give back that ship or however many ships that you have on the sheet, and essentially it makes both of the encounter cards negotiate cards. So it says here, as a main player, after the alliances are formed, you may use this power to return all ships on the sheet belonging to the opposing main player, proceed to the resolution, and resolve the encounter as if both players have played negotiates. So you don't even plan, you don't put cards down, you don't do anything. All it is everybody played negotiate, you try to make a deal. Can be very, very interesting, some very interesting strategies behind the Patriot there. Next up is the Brute, which kind of reminds me of the Bully. In this case, the Brute has the power to threaten somebody, where the idea is that whenever you are either the main player or the ally, again, very versatile, which is very nice, and after the alliances, then you can use this power to threaten any player on the opposing side. And essentially what happens is they have to let you look at the cards, and you're allowed to take one of your choice, or they have to remove all of their ships from the encounter. So it's not as bad as some of the other ones that are similar to this, where you lose ships to the warp, but at the same time, the Brute is actively picking a card out of your hand. So it makes sense that you would have to lose less than actually losing a ship to the warp. You just miss out on the encounter, which is potentially bad, and it can also say a lot about your hand if you're not willing to let somebody take a single card from it. Next up is the Sloth. The Sloth is very slow. The idea behind this is that you essentially commit ships to an encounter after all of the alliances are done and everything else. And it literally says you have the power of laziness. You're just lazy, you're just sitting around, you're a sloth. You don't know what's going on. So this says after the encounter cards are selected but before they're revealed, you replace your sloth token, which is what you send in lieu of your ships, and you replace it with 0 to 4 ships from any of your colonies, and then you take the sloth token back. And essentially, if you replace the sloth token with no ships, then it's exactly that. You just have no ships. You still go through with the encounters even if you're the offense, but even so, you basically won't get a foreign colony. But it's like, well, I know that I'm going to lose this, so you just don't commit any ships. Very fun. Very shenanigans. Oh, this one's good. This one's very, very good. The Dervish. I'm very sad because we haven't had a chance to play with this one yet. But essentially, this introduces... it's not even a drafting mechanic. It's worse than that because it's just terrible. And it's when you're the main player, and the idea is that you either declare clockwise or counterclockwise, and everybody passes their hands in that direction. So you don't get a completely new hand, but you can potentially completely mess up any of the main players. And this happens whether you're the offense or the defense, and you say whichever direction it is. So you can have some very, very interesting encounters with this little guy. Very, very fun, and like I said, I'm very sad that I haven't been able to play him personally yet. But a great deal of fun, tons of shenanigans. Next up is a power that we picked primarily because of the theme and the first thing that we thought of when we saw it. The power itself is Grumps. And the idea with this is anytime you lose a colony, wherever it is, be it a foreign or a home colony, then you essentially just say at the end of the current phase, then everybody else on that planet has to lose a ship in one of their colonies. So things like this, you combine this with something like poison and shadow and all those, you can come up with some very, very unpleasant combinations. Incidentally, the first thing that most of us thought of when we see Grumps and we see kicks others off of vacated planets, the first thing we think is, get off my lawn! So we just thought it was hilarious and just had to put it in the Shenanigans deck. And incidentally, we do have the house rule that whenever you use this power, you have to shout, get off my lawn! Even though it's not yours anymore. Next up is the Sneak. This is the guy that can literally ninja into a win. Very, very unpleasant and can potentially be very difficult to deal with. The idea is that when you're the defense, if you lose the defense, and that means that you lose one of your home colonies, then what you can do is you can take ships and then you can establish a new colony in the system of whoever was your opponent. So, and that's actually instead of sending the ships to the warp. So it's just ridiculous. The idea is that you're ninjaing all of your ships out. So if you got 4 ships, then now you've got 4 ships in another colony. You didn't actually lose anything, and in fact you gained something. So this can potentially be very, very devastating when combined with something like Parasite or Lunatic and things like that. Very, very fun though. Obviously very shenanigan-y. Next up, we have probably my personal favorite, which is the Worm. The idea behind the Worm is that, first off, on game setup, you can distribute your ships however you want. If you saw my previous video, then you see you have all the ships 4 on each of 5 planets. And the idea with the worm is the first thing is you can distribute them however you want. So you can have 16 ships on one planet and then 1 ship on each of the other 4. You can still do it even Stevens, however you want to do it. But then the real big power with this is you have the ability to re-aim the hyperspace cone. And the thing is that you do it as the main player, whether you're the offense or the defense, it doesn't matter. So it can be completely devastating to somebody else where you can, the biggest thing is that you can actually send it to another system too. You lose a foreign colony, but you can force somebody else to not gain anything. Very, very unpleasant, very difficult to deal with, and arguably more importantly, and one thing is it is after the encounter cards are revealed as well, which is pretty rough. So you move it to your big 16 or whatever it is, and then it's like, oh look, oh now you're losing, unfortunately. Lots of fun shenanigans to go with the worm. Very, very exciting. Alright, next up, we've only got 3 left, and these are the 3 reds that we have for this. First off, it's probably my favorite red, but arguably the most complex and tough to play, which is the Swindler. The idea with this is at the beginning of the game, you have little Swindler tokens, one of which has an X on the underside. So you distribute them however you wish amongst the players, and whoever gets the one with the X is your mark. Because you're a Swindler, they're your mark. They don't know which one is which. You're allowed to look at them, but they are not. And then at any point during the game, you are allowed to activate your mark, so to speak. You have the identity theft, as it's called, and the 2 players switch everything in the game. You switch physical positions, you switch powers, you switch colors, you switch hands, colonies. Everything gets switched. You literally steal their identity, and that's the entire point of the Swindler. The problem is that if you are the mark, then you have, quote, the power to panic, which then allows you to, during each other player's start, you can use this power to gain a colony in that player's home system. Very, very powerful, so very difficult to play as the Swindler, because it means that you might potentially get in a little bit of trouble. Lots of fun though. Next up is the mouth, and arguably the most disgusting image this side of Cosmic Encounter. It is a really, really crazy power where it literally says you have the power to gobble. You can eat up a card, so to speak, after the alliances are formed. When a card is placed in the discard pile by the main player or one of their allies, then you can eat it. You put it underneath this, and you put it face down on the sheet, and at the end of the resolution, if there are 5 or more, then you just go and you, as this says, belch, but we prefer vomit because it sounds more fun. And you only get 1 of the 5 cards, though. You don't get all 5 of them, but still, the other 5 are actually removed from the game, so I guess they finished digesting, and it's kind of a little bit gross. Last but certainly not least is the Roach. The Roach is actually fairly unique because during setup you actually need an unused player color. If you don't have an unused player color, sorry, you can't use the Roach. The idea is that all of the other unused colors that you have are the ones that are your roaches, because you're just spawning like roaches and you just never go away. And at the beginning of your regroup phase, so potentially twice during your turn, you can take up to 4 of those roaches and put them on any of your colonies. And then if those roaches die, they just go back to your big pile. I think you actually keep it on the card, technically. And they just keep going, and they keep coming back, and it is just ridiculous. And then the other thing is, when you are determined to be the defense during another player's turn, you can use the power to place up to 4 ships on the planets in your home system, and during your regroup phase, you can also do it. So whether you're the offense or the defense, then you get a whole lot of extra ships, and it's little cockroaches, and it's really disgusting. But, again, it's very shenanigans. Lots and lots of fun, lots of extra ships floating around. But remember, the only way you can play the Roach is if you have an unused player color. So you have to be under the max. Either way, that's it for Cosmic Storm, the 4th of the 5 expansions for Cosmic Encounter. So now I'm going to dive right on in with our final expansion and the end of my little mini-series here with Cosmic Dominion. Similarly to Cosmic Storm, Cosmic Dominion gives us a decent number of shenanigan-y powers for our Shenanigans deck. And also the expansion itself is fairly special because this is the one where all of the powers were picked by fans. There are some that are new designs that are fan designs, as well as some old powers from previous iterations of Cosmic Encounter that haven't made it into the game until this point. But the other major thing that this particular expansion added was an expansion of the rewards deck. There's a lot more rewards now with different negotiations, some different attack cards that change based on the hazard, all sorts of crazy stuff. If you missed it, then you can check it out in my original video where I talk about playing the game itself, and I go over some of that stuff. But with all that said, we're going to go ahead and jump right on in to all of our awesome shenanigan powers. First off is the laser. This is actually one of my favorite powers when I played the Eon edition of Cosmic Encounter, and it's still ridiculously powerful. The power of the laser is that you can blind your opponent. That's what it says. It's like you take a little laser pointer and zap them. Alright? But please don't do that at the game table. Don't blind your opponents with a laser. That's very unpleasant. So the idea is that before the allies are invited, then depending on the number of ships that your opponent has, so from 0 to 4 depending on what their capabilities are, then you take at random that number of cards out of their hand and then you just set them aside. If they no longer have an encounter card, you win. That's it. And this power is actually somewhat devastating for several different reasons. One of which is simply that if you have something like Mobius tubes that releases a bunch of ships, you only have so many colonies that you can go to at that point, more than likely, and then you stack up, you know, like probably 6 or 7 ships, and then laser comes along and you're in big trouble. Very shenanigans, makes you seriously think about how many ships to send when you're going after them. Next up is probably my favorite one from Cosmic Dominion, which is the Greenhorn. The Greenhorn is a hilarious power, which actually does a lot of what it sounds like. It's a greenhorn. You don't know what you're doing. You don't have a clue. In order to actually utilize this power, you actually have to show cards to other players, and you essentially say, like, what does this card do? Like, I don't understand this. And that's sort of the price for using your power. But the idea is that you break a bunch of the rules. So there are things like, you know, if you have no attack cards, then you draw a new hand. It doesn't matter what the timing is. You just draw a new hand. During the regroup, you can rearrange your ships amongst your home planets, and you can repopulate planets that you have no more home colonies on, even if you don't draw your own color. All sorts of crazy stuff. You can play kickers from the reward deck after the encounter cards are revealed. So essentially you just break in a bunch of the timing rules, which ends up being very important. And if you can think of Greenhorn plus having the Filch Flare or something like that, you can have some very exciting games. Next up is similarly to what we have with the Dictator and the Coordinator, where the Coordinator is sort of an upgraded version for us. We have an upgraded version of the Traitor, which is the Whirligig. The Whirligig acts similarly to the Traitor in that the cards are exchanged. The problem is the Whirligig does it completely randomly. And the other thing is that they can randomly decide how many cards people get back. Well, it's not random, but you can either pick to have the players get an equal number of cards. You can say that you get the same number of cards as you started with, or you swap the number of cards that you started with. Either way, then you get a random hand from whatever the combination of what you all had before was. The Whirligig is very fun and just a ton of general crazy wackiness. Next up is a power that allows you to play as a whole bunch of other different people, and that is the Host. Now, for those of you who have Cosmic Dominion, you may have been thinking, well, that might be the Pentaform. I cannot stand the Pentaform, and I refuse to let it into my Shenanigans deck. The Pentaform gets so frustrating so quickly with just having to deal with moving around the powers and having the different cards and all that stuff. And not to mention, the Host was one of the Pentaform powers, so then there's a bunch of flares being used, and it's just ridiculous. Either way, the host itself, the power that it has is it is allowed to use flare cards that are unused in the game. As I mentioned in the previous video when I talked about playing the game, the flare cards get shuffled into the cosmic deck, and the remaining flare cards can actually be utilized by the host, and you have 3 face down that are on this that you can use at any time or as is appropriate, essentially. Very, very crazy, very unpleasant to go against because you don't know what kind of abilities they're going to end up with. Next, we have the opposite of one of the worst cards in the entire game. In this case, we have love, obviously being the opposite of hate. Because we all hate hate. Hate is terrible. Love is less terrible. Similarly to hate, love will discard a card, and then everybody else can elect to discard a card if they so desire. If people discard cards, then they can get ships out of the warp. They get all of their ships out of the warp, and if every single other player does it, then love gets all of the discarded cards. They actually go into the hand. In addition, if one or more players do not discard the cards, then love actually gets their ships out of the warp. So again, it's hand filtering, it's shenanigans, it's just general crazy wackiness of awesome. Next up is the Usurper. This is an interesting card in that it sort of builds off of one of the new mechanics in the reward deck from Cosmic Dominion, which is the Intimidate cards. The Intimidate cards are the ones that you put down before the alliances and say, I am playing an Intimidation card. And somebody can elect to either take it or not take it, or if you end up being the opponent, then that ends up being your attack card, whatever it happens to be. But the Usurper, the idea is that you can force all of the allies, as the main player, you can force all allies to put down cards, put cards face down. You look at them and you can elect to switch out your card with one of your allies' cards, and by the same token, look at the defender's allies and switch out the defender's card with one of your choice. Very, very unpleasant and can be very difficult to go up against, but again, tons of fun. Next up is probably one of the most unpleasant powers to go up against in Cosmic Dominion, which is the Judge. The idea behind the Judge is that they have the ultimate sort of equalizing, spread, fixing wackiness. And what they do is they say the losing player can get this, or the winning player can get this, in addition to whatever they normally would have gotten or lost. This can be incredibly insane for pretty much anything. Part of the thing is that this happens after alliances, so if you're attacking somebody and the defenders are just piling and piling and piling, then you can just say, well, the loser gets a colony in the winner's home system, and that's it. And then you'll get a colony regardless of if you win or lose. It can be horrendously difficult to go against the Judge because you have to seriously balance gaining the rewards of winning and or losing versus whatever you're going to get because of the Judge and what they decide. And it's crazy. It can range anywhere from you give me one card, or the loser gives the winner one card, whatever it is, to exchange hands and the loser gets a base as well, or just whatever it happens to be. It's ridiculous. And again, tons of shenanigans, lots of fun to play with, and difficult to play against. Next up is the doppelganger. The doppelganger is a little bit crazy because they technically never play their own cards, and that's where their wackiness comes into play. The idea is that before you select encounter cards, you actually literally discard all of your encounter cards, and then you, quote, haunt another player that's at the table, not your opponent. When you do that, then you essentially then you get 2 encounter cards from them, one of which has to be their highest valued attack card. And then you can play whichever one that you want, and you get them back. And it's, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And there's things like if you have fewer than 2 encounter cards, you draw up until you have 2. And it's just all sorts of crazy wackiness. Tons of fun. The flair for it is also pretty exciting, just the wild one as well. Next up is the Mesmer. This one is actually very, very difficult to play simply because you have to really know the decks and know what your options are as far as cards. because the idea is that you play an artifact card as if it was any artifact card you name. So you can say that a card zap is actually Mobius tubes, or vice versa, if you just want to get rid of a Mobius tubes and sort of screw everybody over. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. The problem is, again, it really relies on your knowledge of what is in the game and what you can be capable of. Very, very fun and potentially very dangerous, because they can basically have a hand of cosmic and card zaps if they so desire. Last but certainly not least is a big element of randomness, which is generally something that I frown upon in games, but again, we're talking about the Cosmic Encounter Shenanigans. And this power was probably one of my favorites when I read about it, and when I played it, it totally sold me on it. The power itself is the Joker. The idea behind this is that at the beginning of the game, an attack 8 is a wild card. Whenever somebody plays an attack 8, then you use a token off of this card. There are several different tokens that you can use, and you replace that 8 with one of the tokens. I think there's like a 42, there's a retreat, there's a negotiate, there's just like some randomish numbers. I think there's a 30, a 15, a 12, a 0, you know, just a somewhat random assortment of different cards that you can pick. And the thing is that whenever your offensive turn comes in, I believe, then you can change whatever the wild card is, and it's pretty crazy. It's a lot of fun. So see here, it says 6 different attack cards: regular, negotiate, a morph, and a retreat. I forgot the morph too. But either way, lots of fun, a lot of craziness, definitely a lot of randomness as well. But in the end, you can actually be potentially in trouble with it if you've only got, you know, retreat and negotiate left, and you have to end up playing a wild card for whatever reason. It can be very difficult, and it can easily backfire on you. But either way, that's it for Cosmic Dominion. So with that, I hope that you enjoyed my little mini-series on our Cosmic Encounter Shenanigans deck that myself and my gaming group have come up with. If you liked it, if you enjoyed it, go ahead and like the video. Be sure to comment with anything that you have to say, whether it's any powers you feel that we're missing, any powers that you feel don't fit, whatever you want to do. Go ahead and stick it in the comments. I'm happy to discuss all of this. All sorts of exciting things. Great, great, great. Awesome, awesome. Have a wonderful time. Enjoy playing games, and I will see you next time. Thank you again for watching part 2 of my 2-part mini-series on the Cosmic Encounter Shenanigans deck. I hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to put any of your favorite or least favorite powers into the comments below. In addition, if you want to see more of my videos, you can see some of them linked up at the top of the page. And if you want to see more from me in the future, click on the big giant subscribe button so that you can see more about board gaming as well as video games and science. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.